You're listening to the How to Talk to Girls podcast with your dating coach, Trip, from tripadvice.com. Do you struggle with getting girls to like you? You'll learn step by step how to talk to girls to create deep connections, whether it be for one night of wild fun, a 1-week fling.
Are you currently involved in a sexual relationship?
Or for a lifelong partner.
Full of long-lasting pleasure.
Here's your host, Trip.
Hey, and welcome to the How to Talk to Girls podcast. This is your host, Trip, from tripadvice.com. This week, we have a interview with Collette Davenport. Ooh, yeah, it's going to get real intimate because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about intimacy, and she is the sex and intimacy expert. Collette Davenport at ColetteDavenport.com. She is a coach. I believe she calls herself a coach. She does work with clients and she does coach them through the process of being able to find out what it is they want in a relationship, how to be more authentic, and how to create a deeper intimacy and a deeper connection with not just your partner, but with yourself. So today we're going to be talking about how to get intimate and specifically not just in the realm of relationships, but in sex as well. And she does talk a lot about sex. That is one of her avenues of expertise of becoming more intimate sexually and of course emotionally as well. So without further ado, here's my interview with Miss Davenport. Hey Colette, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you today?
I am fantastic. I am really excited to have you on today's episode. I think, Colette, you bring a little bit of a different flavor than past interviews that I've had, and even really past topics that I've talked about. And that's one of the reasons why I was excited to get you on and teach some cool stuff today and expand the minds of the gentlemen who listen to the How to Talk to Girls podcast. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Awesome. So tell us about what you do and who you help and a little bit of a background on how you got started doing what you do so the guys listening can get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. Yeah, so I am a sex and intimacy coach for power couples. In other words, I get to help a lot of high-achieving people have extraordinary relationships. I think there's a sort of a commonly accepted idea that to be a successful person professionally, that you oftentimes have to sacrifice areas of your life, like your own well-being or your relationship. And I just don't buy it. I think it's bullshit. So the people who aren't buying into that story are those that seek coaching and really high-level support in reaching success in all areas of their life. So I get to partner with those people on that journey. And how I've come to be here is, well, I've been in this conversation about sex and intimacy for more than 20 years now. Sure. And it's just been an ongoing curiosity of mine that I've been called a sexual anthropologist by some people, just because it's something that I've explored ongoing. And an area that I saw a real need in were people who had a certain level of success in life and were, movers and shakers and making shit happen, but were complaining about the lack of fulfillment in, either long-term marriages or not being able to really find the right partner for themselves. And so struggling to date and really make connections with people intimately. So just putting the two together, and being an entrepreneur and being a mover and a shaker myself, it just made sense to kind of show up in this specific arena and put my passions together and hopefully, do great work for people who want it.
Cool. And at this point in 2016, how many years have you been doing it for?
So coaching, like I do now, about 6 years. But, like I said, ongoing conversation, writing and talking, speaking about sex and intimacy and relationships and dating for 20 years now.
Wow, that is a very long time. That is amazing. You are definitely an expert, that's for sure. Very cool. So when people come to you And let's talk about women and men. When they come to you, what's like their biggest question? Are they asking you, how do I be more intimate, or how do I become intimate? Are they using those words? What are they saying to you when they come to you for help?
Great question. So it's different for women and men. Most women are saying that they are lacking intimate connection. Well, I don't have the kind of intimate connection with my husband. The cooperation is missing from our relationship, or I really want to partner with a man, and I'm just not finding men who are stepping up and showing up in relationships. So that's typically how women speak about what they want to overcome or improve.
And what does that mean exactly?
Life.
Like stepping up and into a relationship. What does that mean?
Yeah. So, like I said, the majority of the women that I work with are successful, independent, up to something in life, and are wanting a partner to show up, really, powerfully for them. So partner with them, not take care of them, not save them, not support them in the traditional sense that, we think of, but partner with them, recognize their goals, recognize their abilities, but also not forget that women are also women, and we've got a soft side, and we enjoy being loved and nurtured in an intimate way with a man. So stepping up and showing up really means responding to who she is now, not the idea of what a woman should or can be or was in generations past.
Got it. And what about when men come to you? What are they asking?
Yeah. So when guys come to me, they are typically struggling with confidence. The confidence to communicate their desires and what they want in relationship, either with their partner or what they're wanting to sort of put out into the dating world. So they say they want, mostly they say they want the secret, the key, all the answers to women. But what they end up actually getting is the answers and the secret and the key to themselves, learning and understanding what their greatest qualities are, and then shining some light on what they're struggling with and what their shortcomings are, so that we can build and overcome those, so that they can actually be the person out in the world that they are wanting to attract to them. So it always starts with working on the self before we start, working on some sort of strategy or tactics to improve or get a relationship.
Right, absolutely. So you say a lot of guys, they come to you, they struggle with confidence. So what's your process in being able to help a guy who doesn't have confidence? Like walk us through it here, so we can kind of understand maybe ourselves how we can become as men more confident.
Yeah. So like I said a moment ago, the very first thing to get clear about is first thing to get clear about is where are you now? State of the union. And what do you want? What's the goal? What are we moving towards? What's the target? What do you really, really want? And not just like, yeah, it would be cool if I had a girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm talking about what is a compelling vision for, your dating future or your relationship, that you want to achieve.
What do guys usually say to that? Like, what have you heard before?
Somebody who loves me, that I love, that we have great sex, and we do fun things together, but we're also there for each other when times are tough, and somebody that I can trust, somebody that I can be fully myself with and build a life with. Usually that's something along those lines.
Right. And you said that a lot of guys are wearing some sort of mask. You said that to me before we started this call. Talk a little bit about that. Like, what does that mean when you say that, and how is that affecting guys' relationships with other women and probably themselves included?
Yeah. So the mask is essentially, it's a metaphor for hiding behind the shit we don't like about ourselves. There's we all want to show up in the world, and whether that's the dating world or the world at large. We all want to show up with our looking our best, feeling our best, and doing our best. And a lot of times that's sort of, there's a mask that we wear in order to do that. And we do that because we haven't fully fallen in love with or accepted ourselves. There's something about ourselves that we don't like. And a lot of times it's an unconscious thing. Sometimes we know it, and we intentionally hide it, because if the world found out that shit about me, they would never love me, like me, or, want to be involved with me. So then we wear this mask. The important thing to get about that is that everybody is walking around with a fucking mask on. And instead of each of us responding to and reacting to one another mask to mask, I think it's super important for each of us to kind of dive into what that mask is, what's behind the mask, and work to show up authentically, work to show up intimately knowing ourselves and inviting other people to do that as well. I really believe that that is where true connection and the possibility for amazing, extraordinary relationships and things to occur is when we show up without our masks with one another.
Yeah, just being the most raw version of you possible. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly how I would describe it.
So a guy comes to you and, he's got this mask on and he doesn't really know, well, maybe, I'm just saying as an example, he might not know who he is.
Yeah.
Or he just doesn't really know how to do that. It's like, how do you, so I guess you started with, okay, what is it that you want? And you'll go through with a guy. What is it that they want? What are they looking for? And it sounds like that's probably a whole process right there where you're really diving deep and trying to get to like, no. I'm guessing you probably say like, no. But what do you really want? You know what I mean? And that probably like is a really intense part of the session, right?
It is. Yeah. And it's, so when I work with somebody, we work together on a minimum of 4 months. And, well, that's not necessarily true. I also have a quick start program. So the quick start program would be getting to that, getting deep level of clarity around that and insight around that kind of, fundamental stuff. And then taking it from there, taking it further if they wish. So it is an ongoing conversation. And sometimes that that depth of clarity takes more than a single conversation to achieve. But it's paramount because without knowing, the deep heart centered, compelling reason for doing this work, it just doesn't land in a transformational way for somebody. It's just more fucking information. And, we don't need necessarily more information because there's a lot of information available to us. I think that it's useful to really have the insight, the wisdom, and the truth be derived from our own hearts and our own inner workings.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you find out what it is that you want and you get to the core of that. Now someone knows that. What happens after that?
Well, then we set up a strategy for helping them achieve that. And then that's where we start looking at this idea of the mask and then dismantling what that is. And that too can be a process because, we hide behind the mask for a reason. It's usually to keep us from some form of pain or perceived pain. And so that can be, there can be some sensitive stuff around that. And so while I'm very direct, there's a lot of support and compassion that goes along with that process of unmasking.
So let's use an example here. So,
Okay.
when you end up getting sexual with a woman for the very first time, there is, it's very exciting. It's very exciting, and it's really like, almost like, feels amazing, like a lot of like love feelings. And then, if you end up in a relationship for a much longer time, for lack of a better term, the sexual intimacy could stale out just because it's not new. So how do you help guys with that?
Oh, great question. So I think the key to keeping things new is having a fresh perspective and really maintaining a high level of curiosity. And it takes effort to do that, right? Because we can kind of fall into just a kind of a pre-programmed way of being. And I'll say this, and I'm kind of hopping around a little bit here, but I'll say this: the culture that we live in today is all about short-term, rapid-fire attention, and it's real easy for our attention to be pulled in 1,000 different directions. And so that definitely contributes to this idea of something no longer being new and exciting. And it really becomes a matter of choice, choosing to remain interested, choosing to remain present and look through fresh eyes at this person that you're with. And honestly, to having a broad repertoire of fun, sexual, sensual experiences that you're willing to bring in to the relationship.
What could those
and some
be?
other stuff. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. What could those be exactly?
Man, I read about that all the time, because that's definitely something that people run into, is the stagnation around the sexual relationship. So one of the things that I talk about is exploring your partner from a place of pure curiosity. Right? And so always being curious about aspects of their body, areas of their body that you may not typically think of as erogenous zones, or, just not your go-to areas. And so exploring the body from that perspective can be a really fun and exciting approach.
Cool. I like that. That's awesome. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what about guys who are not very sexually experienced, that haven't had sex with multiple women? Do you recommend for a guy to be better in bed and be more connected and intimate to have multiple sexual partners? How does one kind of tap into that better if they're very new to sexual experiences?
Yeah, so I think that can be a tricky place to be for somebody who hasn't had a whole lot of experience around sex, and maybe lacks the confidence, to be a great lover, and how do I approach women, and what's the steps that I take, and how do I end up in this place that is magnificent at the end of it all. I think that can be tricky, because what I would always talk about in this particular circumstance is, again, this idea of showing up authentically, being present to what is, rather than, hanging out in your head about the stories and do I get this right and how do I go and what's my strategy and all of that. Like, just be with her. Listen to her, ask her questions, come from a place of curiosity, come from a place of authenticity. Know yourself. Do things that are going to increase your confidence in yourself. And you may not have a whole lot of experience sexually, but you have experience in life. Talk about what you're up to, what you're into. Ask her those questions and really listen. And let that turn you on. Sex isn't difficult, although we've made it this jungle that we've tried to hack our way through, and now we're lost and we're like, now where do I go? And how do I do it? And how do I figure it out? And how do I achieve success in this area of my life? The way to achieve success in this area of your life is to be fully present in it.
And to be just aware of kind of everything that's going on in your mind and in front of you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think we can mind fuck ourselves more than we are actually, enjoying the naked body right in front of us sometimes.
How do you mean?
And so I have found that over the 20 years of having this conversation, that most guys are hanging out in their heads and, with their thoughts and their fears and their questions and their concerns and their, performance driven way of being around sex. And that is what I call the mind fuck, right? There's so much chaos, questions, comments, concerns, goals, intentions, all of that happening in your mind that you're not actually present to the sensations of your body, the curve of your lover's hip, the warmth of her breath on your neck. You're actually missing a good portion of what is true and pleasurable and, the best part of being naked and intimate with another human being is happening right in front of you, not in your head.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think also, I'm just going to guess a lot of guys, focus on the sensation of what's happening down in their genitals, and they're not really focusing on anything else. And while that, feels really good, there's a lot of other sensations and feelings happening.
Yeah.
Right.
And yes. And then the focus on that paired with the thought of, not coming too soon or staying erect or, being seen as some magnificent lover, oftentimes backfires in terms of what happens in the genitals. And guys have put so much emphasis on, the quote unquote successful outcome of sex on their genitals, on their cock. And it just diminishes what's possible in that intimate sexual encounter when guys, women do it too, emphasize how what they look like and how they're performing and things of that nature. So when we put so much emphasis on such a small aspect of the pleasurable potential of sex, then it really just we're just selling ourselves short, and oftentimes it backfires, and we feel quote unquote unsuccessful in that area of our lives.
Right. What are women thinking during sex?
So in a way, we're thinking about pleasing a partner. Like guys are thinking about pleasing the partner. We're thinking about our, how we are also performing and if he is into how we look and what we're doing. And, we're conscious of our bodies and if they are as, sexually attractive and arousing as we'd like them to be, or as we see other stuff in the media being. But so that's one area, that's one bracket of thought. Another area of thought during sex is really about, and this is quite frankly very often like in the recesses of the mind. In other words, it's not a conscious thought. It's more unconscious. But we're wondering if we're safe with him, and I don't mean safe like are we going to get physically hurt. I mean safe. Are we safe to open ourselves to him? Like, can I fully let go and fully open myself, not just my legs,
Right.
but my heart and my soul and my full self to him? Because your listeners probably have heard this on this podcast by now, but for women, sex is more of an expression of like a deeper soul level exchange or interaction or engagement with a man. Whereas for men, it's typically a physical, mental experience. And I'm not saying this, I'm speaking very generally. So I'm not saying this is true in every instance, right? We like to be fucked on the kitchen counter too. But in the kind of instances where I'm talking about, opening ourselves and feeling safe, I'm talking about our hearts, our souls, and the deepest sort of aspect of ourselves.
How can a guy make a woman feel safe in order to open her heart up and feel safe and all that good stuff?
Yeah, be intimate. Be willing to be intimate. And here's the thing I want to say about that. So I love this word intimacy. And I like to break it down into three or four words. And it goes like this. Into me, see.
Into me, see.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Go on.
Do you get that?
Into me, see. Yeah, it's like seeing more than what what meets the eye.
Yeah.
So seeing deeper and
Yes.
and being able to probably communicate in a way that allows her to understand that you're seeing her on a deeper level and not just maybe on a physical level. Am I getting that right?
That's it. You got it.
I win today's prize.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, talk more about that.
Yeah. So what makes a woman feel safe is knowing that she's being seen and heard and acknowledged and honored. And she can trust the person that she's with to show up. I know I keep using that phrase, and if I need to expand on that, I will. But to show up and be real with her and be truthful with her and be transparent with her and talk to her, communicate. And again, that goes back to these guys being able to tell the truth to themselves about themselves and be honest with themselves about what they want and what they're, and why they want it. And so when guys, women too, when we can do that with ourselves, then it's just so much easier to show up and be intimate with another person.
What if you're working with a man or a woman? I guess we'll say in this case a man because most of the people listening are men. Mm-hmm. If you're working with the man and you ask him, what do you want? And he doesn't know the answer. What if he's like, I don't know what I want?
Yeah.
And there could be multiple reasons for that. Maybe he can't decide because he's had so many. Maybe he hasn't had anything or experienced much, so he doesn't really know. But either way, what kind of advice or help would you give the guy who's like, I don't really know what it is that I'm looking for or want?
Mm-hmm. So I'd say, well, let's talk about that. And I think the first question I would say is, what is it that you don't want? We might start there. That might be a better place if somebody just is so stuck in not knowing what they do want, than talking about what they don't want.
Yeah, because everyone will have an answer for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting though, because a lot of times people will show up talking, well, I don't want this, and don't want, and I don't, and I'm like, what do you want? And they don't know. So then we kind of become detectives and look at, why is it that you don't want this anymore? Okay, well, if that doesn't work for you, what would be the opposite of that? And why would that be a good, thing in your life? So we would turn into detectives and discover through that process of looking at things you don't want, which most people know, and what the opposite of that might be and why you might want that.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good answer. That's a good answer right there. Have you had a lot of guys or women come to you and not know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's super common. And the thing about not knowing, this idea of being confused about what we want, it's really just a mechanism that the mask has to keep us in a state of like just not taking responsibility. In other words, let me see, that doesn't make a lot of sense probably. So the mask, remember, this is this thing that we unconsciously wear to keep ourselves safe and from being seen for that shit we don't like about ourselves. Well, that mask has coping mechanisms. And this idea of not knowing or having confusion around what we want is one of those coping mechanisms. But really what that does is it keeps us from taking responsibility for our lives, really. So if we're talking about dating and relationship, if somebody says to me, I just don't know what I want, essentially what they're saying is I'm not responsible for this. Somebody else can fix it, or somebody else can tell me what to do. And that just ultimately does not create an empowered, fulfilling, aspect of life in regards to dating, love, relationships, and so on. And so it just becomes this ongoing cycle of not getting what we want and not taking responsibility for that. And again, this is just a mechanism that this mask does to keep us from being fully seen by others, because that can be some scary shit. You got to reveal your dark spots, your dark, dirty corners of yourself. And we do our damnedest to keep that stuff hidden from ourselves and from others. But ultimately that's not where satisfaction in relationship comes from.
No, as you're saying, it comes from tearing down the mask, showing up as your most authentic self, which kind of means knowing exactly who you are and what you want, and being able to communicate that properly, and hoping that you're with someone who can do the same. Because if you can be with someone who can do exactly that, then there's potential for a very powerful and intimate relationship.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. That was just kind of like my little summary of what I've learned from you today, Colette. So that was really awesome and super profound and deep. So thanks for sharing all that with us, and tell the guys where they can find you if they wanted to work with you and work on this stuff with you so they could be more intimate with women.
Yeah, absolutely. My website is ColetteDavenport.com. And I have programs for successful single guys called Swagger School. And then I've got a program for guys who are married and lacking confidence, specifically in the area of sexual self-expression. And so go to my website, take a look around and see if any of that resonates. And if it does, let's have a conversation, see exactly what's going on in your specific world. And if I can be of service to you, I'd love to further the conversation. And then I also just launched an ebook on Amazon yesterday called the 3-month sensual playdate planner. And so this is my way of helping people keep intimacy and sex fun and interesting. So there's 3 months worth of ideas and resources to help with that.
Awesome. Fantastic. So you heard it here. You can go check out Colette. I will put that link to hers in the show notes. And Colette, thanks again for coming on and sharing this with us. Go check her out. Go do some coaching with her. I am sure it will be super, super helpful. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. Over 18 and want a question answered on the podcast? Email all your questions to trip@tripadvice.com.